Hey everyone, my name's Monsol, and today we're gonna talk about ethical hunting. I'm gonna give you 3 basic ethics to keep in mind and 4 alternative suggestions to make your practice really ethical. For those who don't know, I am the founder of Sacred Hunting, an organization where ethics and integrity are an incredibly large part of our emphasis and the work that I do. That being said, I do want to make it clear that there's no one-size-fits-all to ethics. There are certainly some best practices, but everybody is going to have a different relationship with ethics from how they were raised with hunting, where they came from, and I don't want to make it sound like my way is the only way. I have immersed myself in indigenous cultures around the world, and especially in North America, and so I bring an animist or eco-spiritual approach to ethical hunting that allows me to go a bit beyond the basic North American model of wildlife conservation. So let's get into 3 of the basic suggestions for ethical hunting, and then I'll share 4 more alternative suggestions. Number 1, community first. The soil, the animals, the plants, the water, everything in a community, in a living community, has to benefit for it to be ethical. Aldo Leopold, known as one of the early conservationists and environmentalists in this country, once wrote, "A thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise." Number 2 is sustainable take. A core part of having the community be the most important priority is sustainably hunting animals where their populations do not decline as a result of our human actions. I'll give you an example of what this might look like. If a particular region has a population of 1 million deer and they have 250,000 offspring every single year, theoretically, hunters can kill between 1 and 200,000 deer a year and still not negatively impact the species and their population. Now, clearly, there's way more biology and environmental study that goes into all the different numbers, but that's just an example of how we can hunt in an ethical way, making sure that all of the animals we hunt are sustainably remaining in their population or even growing larger. Now, the concept of sustainable take has largely been utilized for the North American model of wildlife conservation to great effect. And of course, biologists, conservationists, they could always appreciate a bigger budget. However, they have done a fantastic job with what they have been given. And as hunters, you might notice different states, different regions, different zones have completely different rules and regulations during the hunting season. Almost all of those in the United States and Canada are governed by sustainable take principles. These scientists have learned about the animals enough to understand which animals and how many can be hunted in order to preserve the population's integrity. Now, these sustainable take principles have been used to great effect in America and Canada over the past 100 years. The wild turkey, the duck, white-tailed deer, elk populations were all drastically lower than they are today. And that rebound has been almost directly attributed to sustainable take practices, and specifically hunters such as yourself and me who are engaging in an ethical manner. Number 3, a quick, clean kill. Now that means for you and I, the most important thing we can do for that animal is to prepare adequately and even above what we expect. That means practicing with your bow, practicing with your gun, whatever the case is. If you don't feel comfortable with your compound bow, even if you desire to hunt, you should use a rifle instead. And the reason is we want to make sure that we are extremely proficient before we start to go out in the field and hunt and potentially harm any animals. One thing I really emphasize for any beginner hunter that comes on a sacred hunting experience is to prioritize the relationship between you and that animal. That is an extremely intimate relationship, to be seeking to kill this animal, to eat this animal, and have it become a part of you. And if you are going through this process, you're gonna have an intimate relationship with that animal. And that means you need to be in integrity with your shot to make sure that it doesn't suffer. Now, this won't happen every time. And every hunter, no matter the most experienced, myself included, has wounded an animal. And my invitation to you is, instead of shaming yourself or berating yourself for doing it wrong, look for the lesson. Look for the unique opportunity for you to grow as a person, whether that be practicing more, committing more time to your practice with a rifle or a bow. It could also mean slowing down, taking a shot that is not so excited and activated. Whatever the case is, see it as medicine. If you see it as medicine, then at least, even though you have wounded an animal, which is sad, you will take something away from it that will benefit you as a hunter, but also as a person. So many of these basic ethical hunting strategies are intellectual in nature. They come from the mind, and that makes sense because the mind is an incredible problem solver. But there's also the emotional or feeling ethics that we can engage that Aldo Leopold emphasized as well. In fact, he said specifically, the land ethic described by Leopold advances through both an intellectual and emotional process. So these emotional processes are extremely important, especially because our dominant society emphasizes the mind and the intellect over our emotions and our feelings. What's most important here is that we can see ethical hunting as a chore that we must do in order to fit in with the way that people hunt properly, or we can see it as a great portal and door to a more spiritual side of ourselves, a spiritual practice really, that allows us a greater depth of feeling to ourselves, to the animal, and to the earth. Now, number 4, the advanced strategy is to acknowledge your gratitude fully. One way that I acknowledge gratitude on the hunt is through the use of tobacco. And I will bring some tobacco for reasons that stem from the Native American peoples here. Tobacco was a sacred plant, something that they used for exchange and barter, but also something that was representative of value. And I'll take this tobacco and I'll offer it on the land, I'll offer it on an animal when I hunt, and the purpose is for me to use this tobacco to remind myself of my practice of gratitude. So much has to happen for us to be successful in killing an animal to nourishing our families. That means having the time to go out. It means having the luck to find an animal, to take the right shot, to find the dead animal after it has been shot. To be in a place of gratitude is to be fully appreciating the gifts. And I am as guilty as anyone of forgetting about or taking for granted all the things that have to happen in order for an animal to come to me and to my dinner plate. So the thing that's really important here, however you want to find gratitude, is really emphasize, lean in to your own relationship with appreciation. Number 5, feel all of your feelings fully. As men in particular, but as a society on the whole, we've been taught to not express our emotions, not express our feelings, and it is so valuable to be able to bring those into a hunting experience. Here's a perspective. When I go out and I hunt for animals, I kill an animal, I will try to use as much of that meat as I possibly can, whether that be the organs like the liver and the kidney, or the skin for fur, and the meat in all of its different forms for me to feed myself and my family. I even take the bones for bone broth. But what if I could have all of that material possessions that I can touch from that hunt, but I also have the feeling of joy and pride that I've killed an animal, sadness that I've seen this member of a family die, the grief that brings tears to me about what my impact has on the planet, what we are doing on the planet. All of these emotions are part of me using as much of the animal as I can. And even though it's hard to touch it or feel it in the same way that bones might be, this is really allowing me and you to experience the hunt fully so that you can grow, so that you can learn, so that you could be a better father, mother, husband, whatever the case may be. Now that is incredibly helpful, but also it allows you to take this practice of hunting from being a pragmatic source of food into a spiritual practice. And I think personally, we're all looking for the opportunity to find a connection to something greater no matter what we do. And hunting can be that. Number 6 is doing things with intention. And intention just means taking the time to consider what is morally the best decision here. The opposite of sacred, the opposite of intentional is doing something willy-nilly without thinking. So how much intention can you bring into your practice? That might mean the words that you use to describe the animal. Many indigenous cultures were very particular about how they spoke about an animal because they wanted to be in reverence. They wanted to honor and respect that animal. So just be mindful. There's many ways that you can relate to the hunt itself and also the animal with intention, with a reverence that allows the experience, and more importantly, it allows you to maintain a disposition of appreciation, gratitude, and love even as we hunt these animals. And the final advanced way of relating to ethical hunting is asking yourself, where is it coming from? Where in you is a desire to kill an animal? And I want to create a distinction or an example so that this makes sense for you. Someone who is going into the field, who is desiring to hunt because they want to have a trophy, a big buck that they want to mount on their wall, they want to share with their friends about how they've hunted this big animal. They are approaching the hunt from a very different perspective than someone who is going out. They're looking for meat to feed themselves, to feed their family, and they're simply going to kill the first animal that they come across. And both of these examples could kill a really large, beautiful buck or male and have the same outcome, but their motivations are different. It could be said that one of these examples has a little bit more of their ego involved. They covet these antlers that they want to show others for their own benefit, whereas the other person is motivated by a desire to share, to be of service with this animal for others. And that is a great distinction. Even though the outcomes are the same, from an ethical hunting perspective, the motivations of the individual matter. So neither of these examples is wrong. And of course, in the case of this big buck that I've created a metaphor around, if it's legal, then it's easy to understand how this is a very nuanced conversation. The question I always come back to when I wonder, where is this coming from? Is this coming from a place of love, or is this coming from a place of lack or fear or scarcity within me? And this is a self-reflection exercise, and with self-reflection, with self-awareness, is the cornerstone of a personal, spiritual, and self-growth practice. Everything that I've shared here is a reason why I believe ethical hunting is not only a practice, but a spiritual practice. And it is something that you can use to uplift your life, to feel more deeply connected to nature, and to grow and be a better person. And if you would like to participate in some way, my sacred hunting experiences create the container specifically for people to experience that, just visit sacredhunting.com if you would like to join, or visit many of the other videos that I've created and content so that you can learn for yourself how to make this part of your own practice. And you can do that by just liking or subscribing the channel, and I will see you next time. Much love.